Hello, everyone. Welcome to UNT Alumni Live. I am Claudia Taylor with the UNT Alumni Association, and today we are thrilled to have UNT alumnus Jeff Coffin, music educator, author, and saxophonist for the world-famous Dave Matthews Band. We will be chatting about his time at UNT and the incredible things he's done since leaving Denton, from creating an app and education service for sax players to winning 3 Grammys and touring the world. Before we get started, just a few reminders. If you're joining us on Zoom, please keep an eye on the chat section at the bottom of your screen. I will be posting some useful links there, and you can also use that to send me your questions for Jeff. I'll also post a link to a survey there. As always, fill that out and you'll be entered to win a UNT prize pack. If you're watching on Facebook, hi, welcome. You can leave us your questions in the comments section there, and we will get to as many as we can. Now, before I hand it over to my colleague Casey Kameninski, let me tell you a bit about our guest today, Jeff Coffin. After graduating from UNT in 1990, having spent time as part of our world-famous 1 O'Clock Lab Band, Jeff spent 14 years performing with Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, winning 3 Grammy Awards. Today, when not touring with Dave Matthews Band, Jeff fronts several bands, teaches at Vanderbilt University, heads a subscription sax education site called the Sax Loft, and raises money for fellow Nashville musicians with his streaming concert series In the Studio. He has also released numerous solo recordings as well as 2 brand new collaborative albums, and is working on 2 children's books to promote kids' appreciation of musical instruments. Just like, no big deal, only about 1,000 things going on at once. Jeff, thanks so much for being here with us today, and Casey, take it away.
Thank you so much, Claudia, and thank you, Jeff, for joining us. We appreciate
My
you
pleasure.
both.
My pleasure. Thanks, you guys.
Well, Jeff, you're not native Texas, so tell us, how did you land at UNT? What brought you down to the great state of Texas?
Well, yeah. So I'm originally from New England. Massachusetts is where I was born. Lived in Maine, which is where I started playing, and then eventually moved to New Hampshire during my high school years. Yeah, I felt like I needed to get away from all the distractions. When I was checking out colleges, I was going part-time to the University of New Hampshire for a couple of years, just kind of, figuring out like how to practice and sort of focusing in on really what I wanted to do. And there was a friend of mine from Vermont who was going to check out a bunch of different schools. And so he got in touch and he said, "Hey man," he says, "do you want to go with me and my dad to check out these schools?" And I was like, "Sure." So we drove to Indiana. He and I flew down to North Texas. And I remember like on the way down there, I had a really bad cold. And I just remember this. This is really funny. And, and sometimes when your ear gets blocked, it's like there's like the knife pick, like an ice pick going into your ear. I remember it feeling that way, and like me being totally freaked out because I had never felt this. Like in my ear was horrible. It was just terrible. And I remember I was talking to one of the flight attendants, and she brought me a cup, like a double cup with hot water and some paper towels stuffed into it, right? And she said, "Hold it over your ear, like not this way, obviously, but put your ear to the cup." And apparently, the steam and the heat helps to like equalize the pressure in your ear. And so I was able to finally get it to pop, and that's kind of saved me a couple other times. But I just remember it was on that flight that happened to me, and it was unbearably painful. And
I did not mean to bring back those memories.
No, it was good actually. It was really good. And so I went to North Texas, and there was a friend of mine that was already going to school there named Dave Pietro, who is a very, very close friend to me still. And then when we drove back, John's dad had some business stuff to do, so he met us in Texas after his business stuff. And when we drove back to New England, we stopped at William Patterson in Berkeley, and stopped through New York also. But for me, North Texas felt like the right place to be. I was really glad that I went and checked it out. And I had some relatives down there. My aunt was living down there also, and my cousin and my uncle. So I had family down there as well. And it just felt right to me. And so I went with it. And
we're so glad you did.
Glad. Yeah, me too. Me too.
So what did you like to do for fun when you were on campus or off campus on Fry Street, perhaps? I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because I was practicing incessantly, and I was practicing 8 to 12 hours a day. So my social life was at about a 0.5, and my practice time was at about 99.5.
Your
With all
chops
the
were at a 10,
classes
yeah.
and yeah, I rarely went out, quite honestly, and
Wow.
I didn't have time. I mean, that wasn't why I was there. My experience. I just had so much to do, man. But I would have friends like knocking on my door like 1 o'clock in the morning, like on a Tuesday. They'd be like, "Hey, man, come on, we're gonna go hang." And I was like, "Man, I have got so much work to do."
You're so responsible. So
Well,
here,
I knew that I knew that I had to be, and
yeah.
but I mean, I enjoyed my time. I mean, I definitely have great friends from that time that I'm still in touch with, and I don't look back at that time and go, "Wow, I wish I would have partied more." You know,
Well, that's good. That's
I
good.
mean,
And all that hard work has paid off.
well, I think so. I think so. But one of the things that I recognize also is the absolute importance of relationships. And so there is part of me that thinks I could have hung a little bit more, and practiced a little bit less, just to kind of make the hang every now and again, a little bit more, and but that's the choice I made, and I'm totally okay with that. I'm totally
Yeah.
okay with that, and
No regrets. I love it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what about any specific faculty or staff member that had a huge impact on your education and your time there?
yeah. Well, Jim Riggs certainly, you know, um, um, as one of the directors of the lab bands, he was directing the 2 o'clock when I was in the two. I was in. Well, I started off in the eight. I think I went to the six, then the five, then the two, then the one, something like that. I don't know exactly the course of events. There was a long time. It was a very long time ago.
But it
Um,
feels like yesterday.
some of it does, absolutely. Um, but Riggs for sure. I mean, he was a mentor to so many of us saxophone players, and we still stay in touch every now and then. When I'm down there, I try to see him, and he's a brilliant saxophonist, an incredible teacher, and and some of my ed teachers were really amazing also. Um, David Joyner was down there as well. Dave was doing the rep ensemble and teaching jazz history and different things. Um, I remember I had a really great theory teacher. God, I can't remember his name. I just know we had an early class. We had like an 8 o'clock class, and he had like a big kind of red beard, thin, wiry, and but brilliant, and acknowledged that that people heard things differently, and that was important to me, because I was still trying to figure out how it was I heard music. I wasn't looking for kind of the quick fix, I didn't want to make sort of big decisions about how I heard music or how I thought about music just yet. So thinking like an A sharp and a B flat, it's a different note. And harmonically it's equivalent, but it's a different note. It has different tendencies. It has different perceptions, different intentions. And he would acknowledge things like this, which I really appreciated. So I for me, the teachers that I really gravitated towards, Dr. Gillespie also was another one. He was an incredible educator, and kind of a Bobby McFerrin kind of person of, the way that he was dealing with sound and dealing with body movement and the importance of internalizing music, which is something I talk to my students about all the time still. And I'm sure it comes back to him, So the teachers who were not teaching out of books were the ones who really did it for me, and the ones who were, not so much,
Yeah.
And because education, look, the word education comes from a Latin root of educare, which translated means to draw out. And so the art teaching, I think, instills an inspiration in the student to draw out the material, to discover the material, to inspire them when that lesson or that class is over, excuse me, to go out and research, to discover. And that's the true education. And, as an educator, my goal is to teach the students how to teach themselves, and when that occurs, that's when real education happens, not just regurgitating book information, not just putting forth a bunch of facts. You have to understand the holistic nature of education. You have to understand the connectivity of those things, And so these are the things that I remember dealing with students. The TAs that I took with also, Deborah Truax also, Rick Meyer Truax. I can't remember which of those is her maiden name that she goes by now, but she was influential also in a lot of ways. But I think going to school, you learn things, especially for me as an educator, ways to teach and ways not to teach also,
Absolutely.
And so I think that you're forming patterns and relationships with the material that you're trying to understand and then teach. And it's also said that you teach best what you most need to learn, which I find very interesting also. And
But it's so true. It's so true. Oh my gosh, I'm just sitting here like, preach, go on. Your philosophies and your ideas and your methodologies are all so spot on. And I have no doubt that your students up at Vanderbilt are learning so much. And I'm almost
I think
jealous
they
of
are.
them.
But it's interesting because I learn at least as much and likely more than they do. And part of it is that I'm open to the learning process, but part of it also is that I'm understanding that the things that I teach are the things that I'm also learning about, and so it's not lost on me that for the last many years that I've been teaching about listening, about the fundamentals, and because I really believe that those are the things, the fundamentals are the elements of regardless of what you do, whether you're a mathematician, a scientist, a musician, a gardener, a mechanic, whatever it is. If you've got the foundation, then you can build a skyscraper. The stronger that foundation, the more you know about foundation, the more you can build.
Absolutely.
And
so it takes a really special heart to become a music educator, or any educator for that matter. So did you go into this thinking that you had your mindset on it, you were going to be a music educator, or had that been all along, or what was that journey like?
Yes and no. I knew I loved teaching. I had done some teaching in high school. I had really great teachers, and I knew that being a musician, we should expect that we are going to teach. Any musician who doesn't think they're going to teach, I think is in for a rude awakening. And you have guys like Joe Lovano who teach, George Coleman, Joshua Redman, Chris Potter. The greatest of the great, and they're teaching. They're not teaching necessarily full time. Guys like Sean Jones, who's the head of Peabody, Tia Fuller, Kirk Whalum, etc. The list goes on and on. So I think having an understanding that at some point you will teach is important. I've always loved teaching. I've always loved giving clinics and working with students, as much as I love playing on stage. There's something that's hugely gratifying about that, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I feel like I have a gift for connecting with students in particular, and kind of allowing them, like, it's not that I'm giving them permission, but they feel like they have permission to express themselves around me. Like it's just a hang. I don't go in there and go, okay, I'm the guy that you should listen to. And it's like, it's the same tribe. I'm just a little older, and by a little I mean a lot. Um,
Fine. You keep giving yourself a hard time.
but so it's I want it to feel like we're on equal footing. Like I want to invite a horn player up to play back and forth with me. I want to get everybody in the ensemble to improvise. And the only way that's going to happen is if they trust me. If they know that I'm going in there and there's no BS,
I love it.
and there's not. So I'm going in with my music also most of the time, with arrangements that people have done of my tunes. And they're really fun tunes, and it's really accessible. It's fun for them to play. It's funky. Some of it's really swinging hard, but they're earworms also, So like at the end of the rehearsal, like I'll walk around and I'll hear students singing the tunes. They don't even know they're doing it, And I'm just like, I got you.
Gotcha.
And I love that. I love being able to talk about the music and listen to them explore also. And like my favorite time going into a rehearsal is before they know that I'm there. And usually like they're just playing like, playing some crazy funky kind of stuff, right? And I'll walk in, or the director will walk in and they stop. I'm like, man, why did you stop? It was killing. And then they'll, a lot of times like, especially with certain bands, like they'll play some stuff that like the students have no relationship with at all. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, like they sounded so good on that, but they're so stilted on ding, ding, ga ding, ding, ga ding, ding, I'm like, man, why aren't you playing funky music? Because that's what they're listening to, and then get them into like some like early 70s Miles, late 60s Miles, like bring them back into the history. Rather than asking them to go back in history and then eventually come forward. You know what I mean?
That's
inspire them immediately. And,
absolutely.
Get them gravitating towards like checking out people like Jack DeJohnette, Tony Williams, Elvin Jones. Most of these young drummers know people like Nate Smith and Antonio Sanchez. Brilliant. But those guys are listening to Roy Haynes, who's still alive, 94, 93 years old, crushing, and so it's like, how do we inspire them to dig deeper into the history of this music and of improvisational music, not just jazz, but improvisational music, Black American music, and the European improvisational scene, and the Australian improvisational scene, the non-jazz improvisational scene in the U.S., it's South America, et cetera, Africa. List goes on and on and on. Every style of music in the world has some kind of improvisation. Indian music also,
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you just saved your students a lot of time by identifying what they're passionate about and encouraging them to seek that out. And I think that that's truly remarkable. And, I'm sure they are so grateful for that. So good on you.
They better be.
Really proud. Yeah, that's right. I
think they are, because I'm trying to turn them on to a lot of different stuff. And even like I teach advanced improvisation at Vanderbilt too. And it's an incredible program. It's a brand new program though. This is fall of 2020 was our first accredited semester of a jazz studies major, and the band has already won Downbeat Awards like from last year,
That's incredible.
And like the big band won the top Downbeat honor, and the small group won one also. And so, that's without even having a major. So a lot of our majors aren't even, or a lot of our players aren't majors.
Yeah.
They're like studying Chinese and mathematics and economy and economics and studying to be a doctor, blah, 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 And so there's a lot of kind of, cross stuff going on.
Yeah.
From different majors and different disciplines. Cross-disciplinary is what I was looking for. Yeah.
So speaking of awards and winning awards, I just looked at the clock. It's already 4:25 and we've got so much to talk about.
I'm a
so
yapper.
I love it. I could listen to you all day. I don't have to be anywhere, so hang out. No, Bela Flack and being a 3-time Grammy Award winner. Did you ever think in a million years, like even as a college student, that you would be winning Grammys one day?
No, definitely not. No. I mean, I never thought that I would have a gig like the Flecktones or Dave Matthews Band. I mean, you know, I'm first of all, I'm so grateful for those two gigs, and for those two leaders also, and for the people in the crew, the musicians, the people that make those things work. You know, but you know, I mean, I kind of look at it like I've had the best two gigs of my generation, quite honestly. You know, and I've been very lucky. I've worked really hard. There's a lot of sacrifice involved doing what we do, and you know, and without going deeply into sort of like the selfish nature of musicians, we have to be selfish to attain the level of proficiency that we want to. And within that selfishness, there are sacrifices, you know,
Absolutely.
And, you know, some very positive and some not so positive. And, but, you know, I never knew how much work it was going to be early on doing what I do. It's a tremendous amount of work. Now, I'm lucky because I enjoy it. I love what I do. You know, I spend 8 or 10 hours in my loft studio here pretty much every day, and creating, recording, practicing, teaching, doing workshops online, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel very fortunate to get to do what I love. And, you know, and I continue to work really, really, really hard at it. And there are days when I feel like, okay, I'm doing okay. And there are other days I'm just thinking, oh, dear God, what am I doing?
So what you're saying is you're human, and that makes us all very relatable in this whole story. We appreciate hearing
yes,
that, Jeff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we all have our moments, you know.
Absolutely. And you're like the musician, the Michael Jordan musician story, working your way up from the 8 o'clock lab band to the 1 o'clock, and you put in the hours and you didn't party hard, and you had a goal, and you still are working so hard to carry out this mission and accomplish this day in and day out.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, you mentioned being in the studio. For our audience, in case you haven't checked out Jeff on, is it Friday nights at 7 that you
Friday
host
at
your
7,
own
yeah.
show?
Yep.
Yeah. So Friday nights at 7, Jeff's up there doing the exact same thing that I'm doing, but with another guest. And so if you can't get enough of this today, check him out on Friday nights, guys. I can't encourage you enough to do that. It's really fun to watch him and his guests.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll sometimes record. I'll have different guests on. I'll play music that I've been working on, any number of different things. And I'm hoping that we're going to start being able to go back to the original format, which was to have a trio up here, you know, every Friday. And the money that I've been raising for the last year, to be able to pay those musicians every time they come in. So I may start doing that. You know, a musician that I work with, I just found out first thing this morning that he has COVID, you know, and thankfully he's young, he's strong, he's going to be fine. And but he's been playing gigs, you know, and we're not out of this yet. We're not out of this yet. And I have no time for people who are adamant about not wearing masks and not getting vaccines. I'm like, just talk to the hand at this point. I don't really care. Your opinions do not matter to me anymore. And you're entitled to them, but I'm not going to listen to them. You know, I'm not going to entertain them.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
It's been really fascinating to see it when we had our 1 o'clock lab band episode, almost a month ago now, I think, to see the musicians rehearsing in the rehearsal space and how they're spread out 8, 9 feet, maybe 11. I can't remember exactly, but seeing these musicians perform with masks on and masks on the bells and not masks, but you know, some kind of
it's a covering.
Yeah.
To
block
prevent the aerosol. Well, you know, like I one of my students earlier this week, you know, had his lesson, and I had forgotten what his face looked like. like you didn't have it on. I was like, oh yeah, that's what you look like, Charlie. Like, okay.
It took us a year to get to the point where we could recognize one another with a mask on, and now
Right,
it's going to take us another year to get used to seeing us with masks off eventually. So
Absolutely.
it's
I know,
all
it's crazy.
we'll
It's
pivot back
crazy.
the other way.
Yeah.
Well, hey, so we've got a ton of questions flooding in about your time with Dave, and let's just start at the beginning. So back in 2008, when Leroy Moore passed away from the ATV accident and the complications from that accident, you were selected to come and stand in and fill in his place while he was trying to recover. And then when he did pass, you went ahead and you were tapped to be the official saxophone player for Dave Matthews. So
Yes.
how did that relationship form? How did this happen? I'm curious about this and how you were the one selected.
Sure. Well, when I first started playing with the Flecktones, well, it even goes back further than that. The Wooten brothers, growing up in Virginia Beach, there are 5 of them. There were 5. Rudy passed a few years back. So there's 4 remaining members of the family. And so, they'd be playing out of their garage and doing gigs. I mean, when Vic was like, I don't know, 5 years old, he was on the road, And so they were sort of like the Jackson 5, going and doing that, dancing, singing, the whole deal. So as they grew up, as they got well known in the Virginia Beach area, they knew Carter also, and they all used to hang and jam together. And when Carter was kind of coming up, I guess he and Vic or Roy are about the same age, and so they all knew each other from then. And apparently, like early on, Dave Matthews Band opened for the Flecktones, like way early in the career, And so when DMB really hit, the Flecktones started doing some opening dates for them. And so when I joined the band in '97, we started doing some opening dates right around there. So that's when we met. That's when we started to get familiar with one another. And really get to know each other. And so we would jam and all that kind of stuff. So we all stayed in touch, very peripherally, but they would come through town and we would go and hang out, sit in, et cetera, So that's how those relationships started. And they knew that I played all the horns. Man, it is pouring rain. I have to close my windows. Hang on one second.
Yeah, sure. Could you imagine being a fly on the wall and having Bela Fleck and Dave Matthews Band just jamming out? My head's going to explode thinking about that. That is so cool.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we
are in the throes of it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Hey, it looks like the storm's a little south of us, thankfully. But, they were predicting like possibly tornadoes later, which still may happen. I don't know. But it looks like it's kind of broken up. So, but yeah, I'm just glad my windows are closed.
I love the sound of the rain in the background. That's relaxing.
It's really great, yeah.
Can you play something for us, Jeff, to just set the tone? And
Yes. We're going to take nap time now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So everybody's dying to know, what is Dave like in real life? Does he walk around scatting words out at people randomly, or is he...
No, he's a storyteller. He's a very, very, very funny human being. And he's a great storyteller. That's kind of what he does all the time. And but he's very genuine. He's very, very down to earth. He's very much a family man. And I think he likes adventure. Like he likes the adventure of life, it seems. And just he's one to, kind of suck the marrow from the bone kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
He just likes to experience things and people. He seems to love being around people, and he's very gregarious. He's part of the persona that you see on stage, and it is a persona, of course, but it's a very real part of who he is. And I think everybody is that way. I think that's one of the beautiful things about the band is that there's no BS, Nobody's being who they're not, You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's just,
Yeah.
it's a part of us that we share with people in public. Um, and that's part of who we are when we're not in the public eye also, but we recognize that our job on stage is to entertain people and to give everything we've got, first and foremost to the music, second to each other, third to the audience. So individually, we're at least fourth on the list. I look at music as a service industry, in that we have to serve the music, we have to serve the musicians we're playing with, we have to serve the audience. So again, you're at least fourth on that list. But by serving those others, you in turn get served.
Absolutely.
And
I love that.
so I think that we all recognize that, and we all recognize the importance of placing the music at the top of the pyramid.
I love that. So everybody's dying to know also, like, what's it like touring? How do you stay fresh? How do you not get burned out? I mean, you guys have got to be exhausted. I don't know how you do it.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes we get pretty wiped out. A few years ago, we were opening for ourselves. We would do like a little acoustic set, right? And then we would do an entire set. So it wasn't like we were like we'll do a little acoustic thing, take a break, and then do a shorter set. No, it was like we added an hour to the set.
It was two different sets.
It was unbelievable. So I remember there was one time, God, I was so tired. It was August and it was hot, and Rashawn and I were talking, and we were so tired, and I remember I took my shoes off towards the end of the gig, like I was hot and I could hardly even lift my legs. I was so exhausted. And but I never take my shoes off to play, and I took my shoes off. And I remember I was talking to the manager one time, and he said, "Well, how are things going?" I said, "Honestly, man, I am wiped out." And he said, maybe being on the road isn't the right place for you." And I was like, I said, "Really?" I said, "You went from me being tired to that?"
Wow.
I was like, "What are you talking about?"
That escalated quickly.
We're busting our asses out there, I said, "You asked me." I said, "I'm being honest with you." And I said, "And you went from that to that?" I was like, it's a weird conversation to be having.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So what is your favorite song to jam to? And do you have a favorite concert and solo that you've performed since your time with Dave?
Well, it's funny. I don't really have a favorite song. Just because when I learned the catalog, I learned everything sort of at the same time. I took a month and, 3 or 4 hours a day back in the days of iPods. I would just put it on shuffle and play along. And so that's how I learned the catalog, just playing it every day for 3 or 4 hours every single day for a month. And so I kind of learned it all at once. There were certain like I love the tune Rapunzel just because of the strange rhythmic thing that's going on, and in other tunes that have sort of this juxtaposition of polyrhythms that are happening. People ask the hardest tune, the most challenging tune, and that would probably be Last Stop, just because there's so much going on with it, Yeah. And as far as a favorite tune to jam to, it's hard to say. When we have guests, we usually bring them up on Jimmy thing, which I love when we have guests. It's really fun. It brings a different, kind of a different head to us also, and it allows us to hear. And this was the same thing with the Flecktones when we would every now and then we would have guests, and it would sort of just inject the sound with something unfamiliar, And it kind of like puts us on our toes. So I love that. As far as staying fresh, it's not hard. If you're listening, it's not hard to stay fresh, As long as you're taking care of yourself on the road, which we all do, doesn't mean we don't get tired, but we take care of ourselves. Sleep is the biggest commodity. Because some days we're in 3 cities in one day. And we'll wake up, we'll fly somewhere, we'll play the gig, and then we'll fly somewhere else after the gig. And that's hard. I mean, it's hard mentally, it's hard physically, emotionally, spiritually, the whole thing. And so you have to learn how to take care of yourself, and that's done by experience.
Yeah. So when you're on stage and in the moment, do you just find that the adrenaline pushes you through that fatigue and helps you get through those moments?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, you can be really tired, hit the stage, and have a tremendous amount of energy.
Yeah.
And part of that is from the other members, part of that is from the audience, part of that is sort of that call it chi, call it life force, call it what you will, that kind of rolls through all of us.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
Um,
All right. I have one more question about
Sure.
Dave, and then I want to move on to your project. You have got so much going on. Holy moly.
yeah,
Does,
a lot.
does Carter ever not smile? Does he smile in his sleep? I imagine he does.
I've seen him asleep before. Yeah, he's kind of got a little grin. Yeah, yeah. He's a very happy person. But here's the thing. Like,
Oh.
and we've talked about it before also. He's a very grateful human being. I think he really understands the fragility of everything, and he's done a lot of outreach in his life also to people. All of us have, and recognizing that there's a lot of people, much less fortunate than we are, certainly as deserving as we are to have the kind of gig that we have. And so we're very lucky, and I think that we're all very grateful and filled with gratitude and joy for what we get to do, and it's easy to complain about any number of different things. And, but at the end of the day, man, I am so unbelievably lucky to do what I do. And, I may be tired, or I may be frazzled, or I may have too much going on, but it's like, wow, I have too much going on as a musician. What could possibly be better than that? I'm in an amazing band. I love my bandmates and they love me. We have an incredible time together, and I get to teach, I get to work with young players, and I get to write and put up my own records. I have my own record label. And, so, I'm so grateful, man. And I think Carter and Dave and Tim, Rashawn, Buddy, Stefan, I think everybody's in that same boat, And
it's obvious. It's really obvious. I mean, just everything that the entire band does as a whole, and it's fantastic. The world needs more of that. So
I
keep
agree.
it up. Appreciate you guys.
I agree.
Appreciate
follow your bliss. Find the things that
Right.
move you and do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very important.
So I cannot wait to hear more about your children's book project.
Yeah.
I have 2 kids of my own, and
Yeah.
I cannot wait to get my hands on these. Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us more about this. What are you doing?
Well, I started writing children's books. I've got one. Well, there are 4 that I've written, and there's an illustrator in New York, a really wonderful trumpet player named Augie Haas, and so he's been illustrating, and so the first book we collaborated on is a book. It's a children's book, like a bedtime story, and basically it's for kids between the ages of like 4 and 9, and it's called The Rabbit, the Carrot, the Crow, and the Quarry. And basically it's a story about this rabbit that ends up losing his carrot, like it falls into a quarry, and there's a crow down there that has kind of seen everything that happens, and sort of what transpires, like kind of what the bunny tells him actually happened, which isn't the truth, and but the crow's onto him, So he tells me, he says, "Look," he says, "you either tell me the truth, or I'm taking this and I'm gone. I'm flying away with it." So it's a story that teaches honesty, teaches about friendship, teaches about adventure, teaches about sharing also, and it's really sweet, and it's a wonderful little bedtime story. But it's in a kind of a sing-song kind of rhyme scheme, It's a very creative kind of rhyme scheme. And so the other books, it's called Today I Heard a New Word. And there again, it's that same kind of thing. Let me see if I can find one here real quick for you, and I'll read you a little bit of the bass one. So they're doing the two that are coming out first are the saxophone and trumpet, right? The other two I've written were trombone and bass. But so, for example, the beginning of this one it says, "Today I heard a new word, but what exactly is a bass? It's spelled like the fish, but it rhymes with face. Can it jump really high or fly in the sky? Or can I eat it with ice cream like I do apple pie? Does it have friends? Does it talk a lot? Does it live in the trees? Does it have toes and fingers? Does it have knees?" And it just goes on like this, right? And so it's quirky and fun and super fun to read. And I can only imagine what Augie's going to come up with, in the illustrations, because it's very visual. And so I'm super excited about it,
That is fun.
And so
I cannot wait.
So Muse Media, which puts out this magazine called Halftime, the subsidiary is Muse Media. So they're going to put out the first two with the option to put out the third and fourth also.
When can we expect to buy these?
As soon as Augie finishes those illustrations. Come on, Augie, get to it, buddy.
Augie, let's do this.
So I think he's just starting them this week, actually. Yeah, so I think he's starting the illustrations this week. Yeah.
That's very exciting.
And hopefully we'll do like an audio book also, because we could come up with some super fun music for it, and the whole deal. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So tell us about the sax loft. Is this where you learn to play two saxophones at the same time? Because we've seen you do that.
Yeah, well, that's a little further down the road than what the Sax Loft is doing. Well, the Sax Loft, it's the saxloft.com. It's something that I've been thinking about for a few years, and we've been working on it for almost the last year. Myself, Kirk Whalum, Tia Fuller, the Boston Saxophone Shop, and Max Abrams. Max plays with the Mavericks. He's on more the business side of things. He's a wonderful saxophone player. The Boston Sax Shop is doing the realty stuff. Not the realty, but God, what word am I looking for?
Words are hard. I know.
Words are hard. Yes. But all the kind of business stuff, like where the retail, that's the word I'm looking for. All the retail stuff. And so the idea is to have hundreds of videos that Kirk, T, and I do that have PDFs to all of them also. And we're going to be launching in early May. And it's going to be a subscription-based service. So once people subscribe to it, everything is available to them. And we're going to basically have 3 different levels, kind of depending on where people are. And they can dive into any of the lessons from me, Kirk, or Tia, and it'll all be available to them. We're going to have bi-monthly Zoom hangs also, where we'll talk about saxophone things. We're going to have guest gurus, guest saxophonists who will also provide certain lessons and PDFs that the students will then have available to them for free as well through the subscription service. So yeah, you can check out at the saxloft.com. We believe that it's going to be the future of online saxophone education. And we're very, very excited about it. And it's a lot of work. And but we're doing it, We're doing it. Yeah.
I'm so happy for you guys. And
Thanks.
On top of that, you're collaborating with people all day, every day, writing like crazy, putting out albums. I mean, tell us about some of the most recent work you put out during the COVID shutdown.
I'd love to.
Let's hear a little bit of that.
Sure. Last April, I put out an EP called Songs of Solitude that I've got Victor Krause on bass. There's 3 tunes, basically. And I play soprano on all of it. I did a little bit of overdubbing. But Victor Krause is on bass. My wife plays harmonium on one of the tunes. And I've got Jordan Perlson playing a hajira drum, which is like an Indian frame drum with, I think it's lizard skin over the top of it and jangles. And so I put that out as an EP in April of last year. And it's like it'll really transport you. It's very mellow, very chill, and very meditative. And I've been recording for the last year a lot. In 2019, I recorded some, and these records just came out. This duo with this guy, Derek Brown, who's a brilliant saxophonist, does a lot of beatbox saxophone stuff. He's got like 40 million views online It's insane. And so we've done some videos for this also. But this one's called Symbiosis. And we recorded that here. I recorded it, did all the engineering on it, and had a buddy mix it. And then this just came out last week with this wonderful cellist out of New Orleans. Her name is Helen Gillet, and it's called Let It Shine. We recorded that here also. She has a lot of looping, studied classical cello, but then she decided she wanted to improvise. She lives in New Orleans and is one of the revered musicians down there. And so those two just came out. I've got 4 other projects that I'll release this year, plus about 30 single tunes that I might do EPs for. So there's a lot that's involved, And so the remote recording that I've done during this time, I've sent stuff to Brazil, Europe, all through the U.S., South America, different parts of South America, just kind of all over the place, Canada, So there's a lot of music that's getting ready to come out, and so I've got members of the Flecktones, I've got members of Snarky Puppy, I've got some New Orleans musicians on things, members of Preservation Hall. I've got a video that I'm probably going to release next week called "Wash Your Hands," and with a bunch of the guys from Pres Hall, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's really fun, And
now playing in all elementary schools nationwide.
It should be. I'll tell you, it should be.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. You are so busy. Claudia and I are just blown away by how much you've got going on, and you still manage to do everything so well and so right.
Thanks.
And it's just remarkable to see you work. So as we
fun.
get close to wrapping up, it's almost 5 o'clock, and I know you just got your shot, and you're probably getting tired, and you're winding down.
Good.
So we'll let you go here in just a minute. But do you have a little clip or anything you'd like to share with us? As
Let's see.
instrument playing anything?
Yeah, sure.
I don't remember what we had said we were going to do. I'm drawing a blank here.
Well, I could play like a couple little clips of some music that I've been working on. This could be fun. This is a tune that, let's see. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it through QuickTime here. So the great Robin Ford lives in town also, as does Keith Carlock, and they're both in the rhythm section on this. I've got Tony Hall on bass. Tony is a brilliant bassist out of New Orleans. This is a tune called "Tip the Band," and super funky, and it's almost done. I think I'm just going to get B3 on it, but yeah, check this out.
1,
Here
2,
we go.
3,
Hear that okay?
4.
Little board fade here.
Oh, that's fun.
Little DJ for you. There's a tune called Behind the Eight Ball. I just had Bob Lanzetti from Snarky Puppy put some guitar on this.
Nice. We love our snarky puppy.
Oh yeah, I understand.
Good choice.
Bringing the muted trumpet on that also.
I love it. I'm a sucker for a good muted trumpet.
I hear you. That's right. There's stuff like that, some real funky stuff, some really, interesting, like just a lot of different kind of stuff, and
I love it.
and then I'm going to show you a couple other quick little things here.
Are you sharing? Is there a video we're supposed to be seeing, Jeff? Because we're not.
No, not yet. No, there will be here in a second, though. I'm going to play you
Cool.
a little bit of this. Here we go. Full screen it and.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
That's Helen. That's her. It's my sister on the left. That's the Alash Ensemble from Tuva. Throat singers. Johnny Vodakovich. Those are my in-laws from Japan. brilliant trombonist Roy Agee lives here in town. Ben Jaffe from Preservation Hall. You know, so there's...
That is so fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun. So I think I'm going to be releasing that next week. And, but I've got a lot of stuff going on. I got a lot of videos that I want to get out and different things. And so it's just, you know, it's a lot, juggling a lot of plates, spinning a lot of plates, you know. And,
who was playing the tuba on that?
That was Ben. Yeah, he's the sousaphone
okay.
player on in Preservation Hall, the touring band.
Love it.
His family actually owns Preservation Hall.
No big deal.
His dad started it. Yeah.
That's so cool. So cool. Jeff, okay. Last minute here. Any words of advice you can give to our current students, future students, and now even former students? What advice do you have to give out there to our musicians to help them get through this crazy time in our life?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost is understand the importance of relationships, you know, and that everything that we do is a relationship. And the one constant to remember in every relationship is that there will be conflict. Not saying it's positive or negative, but there will be conflict. And you have to figure out how to deal with that. You know, I'm not saying resolve it. I'm just saying that you have to figure out how to get through it and understand that how you deal with it is a reflection of who you are and where you are in your life, you know? And so that's a good mirror to be able to hold up to ourselves. With all the COVID craziness and the shutting downs and all this that we're still not through yet, you know, find creative ways of being creative. As a general rule, that's how I live my life. You know, find creative ways of being creative. I can go outside and find a stick and figure out a way to make it interesting. You know, taking photos, you know, just doing anything to figure out a different way of looking at things. And it's that process of discovery and that drawing out that is at the core of the word education. And so I think about those things. You know, you can always create in different ways and than what you're already creating. And so search those things out. Make it fun.
I love it. I love it. Well, we can't thank you enough for your time and,
My pleasure.
and allowing us to dig a little bit deeper into Jeff Coffin's incredibly
incredible
intelligent
mind.
mind. Yes. This has been a real treat. So thank you so much. And we wish you all the luck and success in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Stay safe out there.
Hey, you too. All right, Claudia.